What is the most disgusting thing you have seen? I was a high school janitor years back. While cleaning the boys' locker room, I found a coconut in one of the toilets. But it wasn't really a coconut, it was a giant poop that could flush. Obviously I called all the other janitors over to see the monstrosity and help decide what to do with it. When Mr. Tidy Bowl himself walks over, he takes one hand and scoops it up like he's picking up a softball, then just chucks it in my trash can and goes back to work like we just wasted his time. Mr. Tidy Bowl must have seen some badness in his life. Literally and figuratively. Had a guy come into the ER that ripped his ball sack open on a wheelchair. As a dude, it made me cringe more than anything else I have ever seen. I ripped open my ball sack and dong when I was standing up pedaling on a borrowed bike with no hand grips. The chain broke and the handlebar jammed into my crotch. 32 stitches in my ball sack alone. The impact nearly took my dong off first, and as it cut downwards it tore my sack open wide. They did a good repair job. I've had 3 kids. It would have cost you $0 not to put this into my mind every time I ride a bike from on, but here we are. A couple years ago I was a supervisor at a beach. Every night before we closed we would go clean the bathhouses and take out garbages and stuff like that. This one night I was cleaning out the men's restroom and this old man came in and went into a stall to do his business. From the sound of it, he was exorcising some sort of demon. Anyway, he finishes up, no flush, walks out of the stall, makes eye contact with me and nods, then walks up to a garbage can and pulls his pants down to the floor and his briefs down to his knees. He must not have pulled his pants down to do his business, because it was all in there. He proceeded to scoop it out with his bare hand and dump it into the trash can. When he was seemingly satisfied, he pulled his dirty underwear up and pulled his pants back up, whipped his hand on his back pocket and walked out without washing. I just kinda stood there mortified. I left the bathroom and my shift mate said I looked like I saw a ghost. I was so white. Dementia. Sad. Maybe. My mother-in-law with dementia lives with us and does weird things like this. She sees that she got poop in her undies. I don't know if she doesn't wipe or what happens. And she knows she needs clean underwear, but instead of taking the first pair off, she just puts a clean pair on top of that. When my husband helps her change, she sometimes has 4 or 5 pairs of underwear on. My wife's friend's mum has dementia. When her 2-year granddaughter touched some dog that she saw in the street, the gran picked her up and put the kid's fingers in her mouth to clean the it off, to the horror of her relatives. Honestly, what dementia does to a person is unfathomable. I work as a gas station cashier in a rural area, and one day we had a young woman come in, absolutely reeking and had what looked like it and semen all over her shirt. She apologized and said she worked in horse breeding. I didn't ask. See? It's important to have a job with purpose, boys. That's why I manually fap monkeys for artificial insemination. Yeah, but why do you insist on drinking the semen after you finish the job? Storage. My best friend's roommate used chewing tobacco. She liked Skoal. She used to spit into various capped bottles that she'd keep nearby and in arm's length, and dispose of them when she was done. Her girlfriend was over one evening, and we were in a heated discussion about something. I can't remember now. It's not at all pertinent to the story. Roommate left the room to relieve herself at a height of laughs and friendly arguing. Girlfriend reached for her soda and took a few gulps. It was not her soda. I still gag to this day, thinking about it. I witnessed it. I can't even imagine what the girlfriend experienced. In high school, we used to have assigned seats for study hall, because the monitor was rich. I was stuck next to this kid in 10th grade who'd chew Skoal wintergreen and spit it into a bottle. It legit smelled like wet ashtray, the undisputed worst tobacco related smell. It's like rotting fish and vomit. The autopsy of a singular rotting leg cut off below the knee. I don't know why I continue to drink my fruit smoothie as I read these stories, but I'm starting to regret it. Shout out the nurses, aides and doctors who may visit this thread. I was really close with my grandma in her final years. Very too long didn't read is that my uncle a few states over had completely neglected her care, so my dad and I moved her where we lived to actually care for her. My uncle had never really visited her in her nursing home, and the nursing home more or less neglected her. So, she developed a pressure wound that essentially had her screaming anytime she moved. I saw that sucker when a nurse went to first examine it in her new facility we moved her to, obviously a much better facility, and where my parents could visit her 6 days a week. I'll never get that sight out of my eyes. A fist deep hole in her back, basically, with part of her spine exposed. Thankfully she received better care and the wound and pain were managed to give her a few pain minimized years before she eventually succumbed to osteomyelitis. Wound was just too deep by point we got her there. I hope you filed reports with the state of the first nursing home. That's awful. So I work as an embalming assistant while in embalming school. A few weeks into the job, the embalmer who was training me decided to not refrigerate a body we were taking to the crematory. She was notorious in the funeral home for lazy and sloppy work, as well as being spiteful toward any other workers in the building. Over a 4-day weekend. Unfortunately, the decedent was septic and morbidly obese, and the nursing home didn't clean them well, likely 4 months before their death. So grey and yellow-green fluid was leaking out from the patient's urinary catheter onto the floor into a 4-foot wide puddle, and the smell had seemed to create its own barrier in the vicinity of the body. The body had been bloated with the tongue and eyes protruding and purge coming out the nose, and blisters filled with blood had already formed all along the skin. Still, because of this embalmer's screw up, we had to move the body regardless of the amount of nasty we just walked into. We lift the gentleman off the table and transfer him to a cot. When it came time to roll the cot out to the transporting van, someone had to unlock the wheels to the cot to move the body. That someone ended up being me. While this embalmer waited, I should have figured out she was up to something, but I was oblivious and solely trying to just get the job done so I could scrub my soul. I was unlocking the last wheel when suddenly the embalmer starts shaking the cot violently, and grey and green sludge fell off the cot and directly down my forehead and face, seeping under my mask. The smell wasn't just a rot smell. It was the smell of pus and decay and infected bowels and long-standing urine mixed into a lovely cocktail of loathing for the living world. It was enough to where the smell burned into the lizard part of my brain, randomly giving me phantom smells for the years to come. I remember this being the only time where I actually shut down emotionally, and I robotically walked to the sink and scrubbed my face, much to the laughter of the embalmer. She ended up getting fired for doing other similarly disgusting things, and I still haven't came across anything as bad as that for me. Damn. I am so sorry. You must have nerves of steel. I am a hospice nurse, so I regularly clean and dress bodies. The worst I've seen is black liquid seeping non-stop from the mouth. To imagine if that, plus 10's worse, got on me, much less in my mask, I would legitimately die, pass out, vomit, cry, scream, and in my pants and then die again. I am absolutely sure you experienced phantom smells. I'm surprised you didn't sue the it out of that woman. I'm horrified that she laughed. What a dumb, evil person. Whoa. Just wow. I'm probably going to hell for this. I was driving a friend of mine to an outpatient program we both attended. Everything was go fine and dandy until my friend screams at me to pull over, which I do, and then I smell it. Turns out she was abusing laxatives pretty badly and she had basically had a poop attack in my car. I was not mad at first, until I dropped her back home and realized it was all over my seat. Also, my seats are fabric, not leather or something that I could have easily whipped off. This was like 3 years ago and I still get the occasional whiff of it every now and then. I felt bad, but come on now. Ooh, I've shared this story a long time ago. Zookeeper here. I'm fairly certain we had a guest intentionally get pissed on by a lion. He came into the zoo early in the morning when we opened, and I first saw him standing near the lion enclosure, right up against the fence, when we let the lions out of the night stall. We have signs warning that the lions spray urine to mark territory, and they've been known to spray guests up to 6 feet through the fence, but I figured he was unaware. So I tell him, be careful, back up, the lions spray you if you're that close. He nodded, backed away, kept his head down. Half an hour later, as I'm cleaning, I see him right back up to the enclosure fence, closer than before. I'm not kidding. "You're going to get sprayed," I told him. Backed away again. That was the last I saw of him, but I had a coworker telling me half an hour later that sure enough, some guy got pissed on head to toe by our male lion before walking straight out of the zoo. We got complaints all the rest of the day about how the bench area that he walked through reeked like cat piss, too. Fun times. He just wants some respect from his kitty cat at home. Now he smells dominant. Neighborhood dogs are now terrified of him. Once I saw the guy get stabbed in his neck and he came walking up to me for help, and as he was talking to me blood was literally squirting out of his neck. Also somebody had all over the floor and wall of the stalls and sprayed blood all over the ceiling. I assume it was from a syringe. This all happened at the place I work at in a span of a couple weeks. Visiting a penguin colony, saw a penguin diarrhea it all over another penguin. They have what is the consistency of diarrhea naturally. Did the backstage tour at SeaWorld. We were warned they shoot it out 6 feet.